Oh, hello there, and welcome to the latest episode of whatever this is. I thought that I might do some kind of spoilery review of the first episode of the Loki television series that's just starting to air on Dinsey Plus, the new streaming service from Walter Dinsey and his son Michael Mouse. They welcomed me into their home many times, and now I have begrudgingly invited them into mine, despite the fact that we're seemingly headed towards some kind of awful monoculture wherein the only talking point of conversation in culture is what did you think of the latest Disney franchise property? So, yes, without further ado, let's jump in. Now, years ago I remembered people in the comments of my older videos used to ask me if I would ever consider doing a Loki cosplay, and I didn't really know what that would entail, but as you can see, I've got some fancy green lights with a bit of gold in. Those are Loki's colours, aren't they? And my hair's a little bit wilder today, and I'm wearing a fancy green dressing gown, just like Loki might wear before his Betty buys. He would put on his little Loki dressing gown, wouldn't he? And his Loki slippers, and he'd get into his little Loki bed. I don't really know what his sleeping routines are. Do mythical, godlike beings sleep? It's not really something that I think we've seen in the Marvel Cinematic Universe at any point. The Andy Warhol of the MCU has not yet had his chance to film 15 hours of, or whatever it is, of Loki being asleep. So we all hope that fascinating installment will be winging its way to us imminently. But yes, I also got Loki's glasses, as you'll undoubtedly recognise with the same prescription, Loki and I, and so in a bid to really capture the authenticity of the character, I've got the same frames and everything, and the same. I didn't actually need glasses before. I've given myself myopia in order to get this a really accurate costume for what I imagine Loki would wear should he need glasses at some point. Good. Well, okay then. I've just watched episode 1 of the TV show Loki, starring Tom Loki Hiddleston as Loki, the god of mischief. Interestingly, the same character as inhabits the mask in the film The Mask. And should you be interested, a YouTube channel that I watch called Mr. Sunday Movies, who is a wonderful Australian film reviewer. He's recently rewatched The Mask, and he makes a very enjoyable video about The Mask, the movie, mostly because he doesn't appear to like The Mask. I loved The Mask when I was a child, and admittedly I haven't seen it for a long time, so it might not be any good now, but I had a great affinity for the rubber-faced goon Jim Carrey in my childhood. In fact, the first 12-rated movie I ever saw was Ace Ventura: Pet Detective. I deliberately stayed home on my 12th birthday, off sick, so I could get the VHS of Ace Ventura, pop it in the machine, and watch that instead of going to school on my 12th birthday, way back in some time in the latter half of the 19th century. In fact, I think I saw Pet Detective after I'd seen When Nature Calls. I think I saw When Nature Calls at the cinema, which must have meant that I saw that in 1995 when I was 11. Which I don't think is that old, but compared to some people now. We're getting off track. I was supposed to be talking about the first episode of Loki, the television series on Dinsey Plus. And what can I say? Well, am I going to spoil anything for you? Probably, but, we live in a bizarre age of spoilers. I think it's alright to have things spoiled in advance, to be perfectly honest. With a lot of these event movies and TV shows, I would really rather prefer to know what it is that I'm going to be watching before I go into it. I don't want to be surprised by these things. I want to know exactly what is going to happen and when before I go into it, so that I know if I'm wasting my time or not. Obviously I am, but if I'm wasting a time that I feel I have to waste, I'm going to see this thing take place, that sounds like fun, I'll waste 51 minutes doing that. So, first major spoiler, as with some of the previous Marvel TV shows, in this episode there is no post-credits thing, whatever they do, scene, little vignette post-credits. There does not appear to be a post-credits thing, which you can just skip over the entire credits. I understand why they were there. There's a hell of a lot of people working on these movies and shows, and they all deserve credit. And it was a way of making people who get bored easily sit through those credits, even if they're definitely not looking out for people's names, in order to entice them with something at the end, a little tidbit at the end of something else, which it's an odd thing, because the credits for this, as with the other two Dinsey Plus, incidentally, I'll stop making that joke in a moment. There's a tech YouTuber that I watch who reminds me of one of my younger brothers. He's very annoying, but I watch his things, and I think he's quite young, even though he says he's married and living in a home, that he owns, not a care home. But this tech YouTuber repeatedly refers to one of the Apple events by a particular name that just gets right up my nose. It's the event is called WWDC, which of course stands for Who Would Draw Cats. But because a W is called a W, you see, he thinks that means it's just two U's, which I don't know the etymology of the letter. I'm sure there's a better way of, I don't know, the word for the history of letter forms, which I should, given I've just done a degree in graphic design. But because it's W, as in two of the letter U, he calls it quadruple U, DC, which is funny the first time, but he seems to call it that just every single time he refers to the event, which now it's over for another year, will hopefully calm down, but that joke has worn extremely thin in my opinion, so I will stop saying Dinsey at some point. I am at least aware that it can be irritating, but that's my little joke to get his name wrong. Michael Mouse is, to be honest, that's my favourite bit of that joke. Walter Dinsey and his son Michael Mouse, which I think that's very funny. Let me know in the comments if you don't. Anyway, what on earth was I talking about? I've completely lost the thread of where I was. I was talking about the end credits. Yes, so I quite like the effort of the title sequence, the end title sequence they've gone to. There are infinitely more little tidbits, I'm sure, if you're familiar with the comics and know what's coming up based on the clues they've hidden. I am not. I don't know anything about comic books. I used to read the Beano, not so much the Dandy, but the Beano when I was little boy, and I read the Terry Pratchett Colour of Magic graphic novel in the mid-1990s. Around about the same time I was watching Ace Ventura: When Nature Calls. But I don't know anything about comic books. I don't read comic books. I don't buy comic books. I don't have anything against them. I don't know anything about them. It never entered my sphere of knowledge. Although in 2013 I did live with a man who was an obsessive comic book collector man. It didn't look anything like comic book guy character from The Simpsons. He was actually he was well over 6 foot. He was a South African rugby player, and you wouldn't have thought comic book nerd. If you looked at him, you would have thought, please don't steal my lunch money. Charming man, but yes, he was baffled by my complete lack of knowledge or interest in comic books. But I just don't know anything about them. It's not my kind of it's not my bag, baby. Anyway, yes, the end title sequence is very beautiful, and the way they shot it is wonderful. But then, after those credits have run in the title sequence, they have sort of plain black and white boring credits afterwards, and those you can just skip if you want to, because there's no end. What do you call it? A post-credits sequence thing. There's not one of those. So spoiler alert for that. One thing that I did really like about the titles was in fact the so I don't know if you've seen the trailers for Loki, literally everywhere, but they've got sort of changing letter forms of the word, the name Loki, the proper noun Loki. Is that a proper noun? I think so. I never learned grammar. That's one of the failings of the British education system. But yes, and the letters change typeface. Each, L-O-K-I. Which way around are we doing this? I'm in the mirror in the thing. I think it's this way around. Is L-O-K-I. I think that will be the right way around. You can just flip your computer around to view the mirror image if I've gotten that the wrong way around on this thing. But they change shape, don't they? If you've seen that. And they're all colourful and 3D animated fonts. And in this, spoiler alert, it's and I don't know if this is going to change for every episode, like the WandaVision opening credits did, but it was sort of a old-timey newsreel footage of that happening instead of, I've made it sound awful, but I really liked it. I wasn't expecting to see that. That was a nice surprise. So that's an example of something where, you know, I've had a pretty much a good idea of what I'm going to get going in, but then been pleasantly surprised by the different aesthetic that they've used for the title sequence there. A gnat too long. It is just the one word, and there's no starring Tom Hiddleston or anything like that. It just says Loki, and it keeps going, Loki, and it keeps going, and just when you think it's going to end, it keeps going, and then it ends, and so it's slightly too long of just the word Loki. But apart from that, I thought it was very. I appreciated the aesthetic of it. It was very nice. So yes, let's get into the meat and potatoes of the episode. There, it starts in a very weird way. It you know, I assume that everybody's seen Avengers Endgame, and if not, it's been out for 2 years. I'm not spoiling anything now, it's fine. A version of the character Loki escapes in that, with a little magic blue box. He just goes into a sort of cloud and disappears, and everyone goes, oh, he's gone. And sorry, a little hair in my mouth. A little bit of cat hair floating through the air there. Very dusty room. Anyway, yes, he disappears into a cloud, and this episode picks up immediately after that. Now, when he disappears into the cloud, he's just sort of standing still. But in this episode, when the cloud on the other end, this dimensional portal or whatever, he's launched through it, which doesn't make any sense. He was just standing still, but instead of, you know, it appears in the sky, and instead of just falling down like that, he's like a cannon into the middle of the, I think it's the Gobi Desert. I wouldn't get too head up about it. They spend no time in the desert whatsoever. It's just a mechanic for getting him. Oh, it's very odd. But I can't make head or tail of why he would be launched through the sky. Don't think that's how gravity works, which, admittedly, you know, the scientific accuracy of these films is, well, in some respects they paid attention, like in the first Iron Man film. The higher that he goes, you know, his suit starts to freeze, so they'll have nice little bits like that. Spoiler alert for a 2008 film there. It's an integral plot point. It is. So they'll have good science like that, which actually reminds me of an old Simon Munnery joke about Icarus. If you know what I'm talking about, that's great. If you don't, that's fine as well. But maybe you should read more books. Yes. So Icarus. Simon Munnery says, "Oh, Icarus, you flew too close to the sun, and your waxy wings did melt." Said the Greeks. The Greeks didn't know what they were talking about. The higher up you get, the colder it gets. That's Simon Munnery tells it better than me. I'm sure there's more context to it as well, but that obviously had a bearing on the first Iron Man film. As I say, it's quite an integral plot point. It's one of the reasons that his suit is made red and gold, I believe. I mean, that was it was a gold all over the suit originally. Then he put some red in it in order to combat that freezing problem somehow. I don't understand. I'm not a scientist, so maybe if we've got any scientists in the comments, they can leave their opinions on that. But then they'll have this kind of thing where Loki is just standing still in one instance. Portal closes, portal opens, and he's ejected at speed instead of just dropping to the ground, which doesn't make any sense. Yeah, so that's, what about the rest of the show? Well, it was fine, it was perfectly enjoyable, but as with WandaVision, and especially with the Captain Falcon and the Soldiers, Winter, whatever the hell that one was called, and this, by the way, I think is only 6 episodes, like Falcon America. WandaVision was a few more episodes, wasn't it? This is only going to be 6, so I understand. Yes, like the Falcon show, each episode is sort of, it's not its own self-contained episode with a, what could happen next week. It's very much feels like you've just watched the first chunk of a film, and then you're going to come back in a week and watch the next chunk of a film. I don't necessarily think that Disney Plus have quite figured out. It's a bit odd. They don't really need to figure anything out. They've got more money than God, frankly. What am I trying to say? When you had the Netflix Marvel shows like Jessica Jones and Daredevil and all of that, each episode felt, okay, it's a substantial episode, I feel complete, and even though I know there's more of a story coming next week, although they didn't do that, did they? They allowed you to binge everything, which this would benefit from, but for whatever reason, they've decided to eke it out week by week. But the Marvel ones, you watched one and then you were like, I'm either going to watch 13 hours of television now, or I could pace myself. This begs binging, but they don't allow you to binge it. They are, as I say, drip feeding you 1 week at a time, which is obviously their strategy, but the show feels like you've just had a starter. Where's my main course? Oh, it's going to be served in a week. And WandaVision was the same, and the Falcon show was the same. Just give us it all at once. I want to watch it so it's done. I don't have to worry about it anymore. That being said, what I may do is one of these each week to it's a shameless tactic to up subscriber numbers. If I want to have this start making money for me so that I can do this as my full-time job, which would be very nice indeed. I need to... How do I get more subscribers? Well, I shamelessly appeal to mass culture by doing, reviews of the Loki show each week until it's done. Anyway, just some admin before I go, because this is it now. I've talked for 25 minutes. I can't think of anything more to say. It's quite fun. You should go and watch it. There's nothing to spoil. There's no... quite a lot of the footage in this episode is literally lifted from other Marvel properties that have previously been seen, so there's really nothing to spoil yet in this. that you haven't seen in the trailers if you've seen the trailers already. You know what's coming, which, as I say, for me, is pretty good. I got exactly what I thought I was going to get. So, other reviewers have already seen episode 2, and they say, "Oh, it's even better." We'll have to do it next week because I'm no one of consequence, and thus don't get anything at advance. Given that I have only posted, this will be my 3rd video in 3 years. So let's try and up that, shall we? So a little bit of admin. The notification bell and the subscribe button, apparently, well, I mean, if you're subscribed already, hooray. If you're not, please do. I should really have put this at the start of the video. But anyway, for all of those of you who are subscribed, apparently you have to click the bell icon in order to be notified that I've posted some new content, because when I started this channel there was no bell icon, so many of you who are subscribed don't realise I'm back. I am. Hello. But if all of you turn on the bell thing, I don't know how that works, you'll have to Google it, then apparently you'll be notified whenever I post up something like this. So, hooray. Anyway, yes, if I am going to do this once a week, I'm going to have to name it something like ASMR Entertainment Whispers. Welcome to ASMR Entertainment Whispers. That's got a ring to it. I like that. This has been Mr. ASMR Entertainment Whispers, and I am filled with tedious purpose. It's a line from the show. He says something else. But hopefully by now you're all asleep. So, good night. Good luck. No, that's someone else. Until next time, goodbye.